So can we start, please? Okay, now we have a session on union party relationship. Stay together for the sake of children or get a divorce. So, and we have three speakers for the session. Changgeun is comrade from Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, KCTU. Many of you know this very militant trade union in Korea. In fact, the most militant trade union in Asia. Sujata Gotoskar, she has been a trade union activist, working with different unions, and also a feminist from India. And lastly, Karen Pepe from GLI Geneva. So I would request Sujata to make the presentation first.
Actually, I've worked with, I began working with a union that was completely controlled by a party, that is the Communist Party of India. Then that was when I was in my first year of college. Then a few years later, I was with the Communist Party Marxist for a very short while. Since then, I've been, since I was about 20 or so, I've been mainly with independent unions. So it is from that perspective that I will talk. From day one, there's been a lot of reference to the Indian railways. Dave spoke about it today, Dan spoke about it, so I thought I'll maybe begin with that. In 1974 was a railway strike. This strike was, it was a 20-day strike in which 1700,000 workers had participated. It was the largest known strike in terms of both workers into the days of strike. The issues were low wages, harsh working conditions, very long working hours. In fact, one of the demands of the loco staff was that in 1974 they were demanding that we should at least have a 12-hour working day, when 8-hour working day was almost 100 years old. This was a railway strike. The strike was brutally crushed, violently suppressed, thousands sent to jail, thousands lost their jobs, and a reign of terror was unleashed. There were a lot of people, workers and their families staying in railway housing colonies, that they were just out on the roads. It was a very, very brutally suppressed strike. The leader of the strike was Mr. George Fernandes, the president of the AIRF. This is again George Fernandes and workers, addressing workers. That was 1974. Within a few years, in 1977, came to power the Janata Party, which in the strike, George Fernandes was in jail for a very long time. Then was an emergency in which he was inside for a very long time, and a whole lot of others with railway workers. And within a few years in 77, George Fernandes and his party came to power. He became the Union Minister for Industries. One of the first things he did was he told the railway unions to stop the agitational mode. This was the difference between the union leader and the minister. And that was a very continuous experience that one has had in terms of the relationship between the union and the party, and then especially when the party comes to power. And that was not just the Congress Party or the Janata Party, but it was a very continuous experience in state governments with, for example, the Communist Party of India, Marxist, where they did not go to the lengths of suppressing, but there were other ways in which unions were and workers' lives were made difficult. Simple things like not intervening in struggles, not intervening in lockouts for very long periods of time, even when their union, their party affiliated union was a union in the industry. So that has been a very common experience. Broadly speaking, one feels that maybe there are more patterns, but there are four types of relationships between the parties and the trade unions. One, which is usually called the Leninist model, which is what is predominant in a whole lot of post-colonial situations. I think, including India, Pakistan, and a whole lot of other countries, where the party has a total control over the trade union. The second model is where the party gives birth to, where the union gives birth to the party, like I think the Labour Party, at the TUC in England, where the party, where the union feels that it has the right as well as the obligation to be able to say what the policies of the party are. What actually happens is a different thing. This is just the model. The third is where there is some sort of interdependence and symbiosis, and the fourth model is where trade unions. And the fourth model has various variations, where unions are quote unquote not political, or business unions in certain cases, but also where unions are political and have a political agenda. They would prefer to be away from a hegemonic party or from any linkages with a party. The first model is something that is largely in a lot of post-colonial society economies. The last model is something that is being tried out in various situations in various ways, including in certain pockets in India where very politically unions with political agendas have been very active, but not been part of, have resisted any attempts to be part of any political parties. In India, there's generally been a different sort of. I mean, it wouldn't be. I wouldn't think it is class politics in the classical way. Basically, because of a whole lot of interlinkages between class and caste, and it's class, caste, and gender, and the way they have worked on each other. So it's a very complicated mix, and hence I would think class politics in the classical way in the classical mode has not been there in India. Plus, the left in India has historically been divided and has been steeped in Stalinist politics. So that is the background on which unionism plays itself out. Historically, the trade union movement grew out of the national independence movement, and by and large remained a creation of it. In fact, the first leaders were common. So one of the first presidents of the first union, AITUC, was our first prime minister. So there were these linkages which were much stronger than elsewhere. Some characteristics of the trade unions have been. Now, many of the unions, especially the unions that are affiliated to the larger parties, have they come together in joint programs, and the last minute they would walk out of it, and there's a whole lot of disarray because of that. Despite the fact that this is a continuous experience, there are attempts to come. So this is a very common experience. Independent unions have often been looked at with suspicion. The lack of assertion has also been, there's a conscious lack of assertion by trade unions vis-a-vis political parties. Has also been, there's this consciousness that actually we represent not more than 8%. So the trade union movement, as a trade union movement, represents not more than 8% of workers. So that there's a constant giving back to the trade unions by the political parties, saying we represent people, you represent only 8%. So that's one part of the lack of assertion. The leadership of most of the unions has remained middle class, upper caste and male. So these are some of the characteristics of the trade unions. Now, earlier there were a lot of arguments of why there should be this sort of linkages. And the earlier this thing was that workers' issues can be raised in Parliament, and that we can have pro-worker legislation, and that's one of the reasons why this relationship was sought, and I mean that was argued, and the political hegemony of political parties was argued in that context. But if you see over the years, the parliamentarians who are connected to trade unions, who could even begin to raise issues, forget policy, making policies, but even raise issues of things like worker repression, and a whole lot of the spate of lockouts that were there. So, in 71, there was 21% of parliamentarians connected to political parties, 7.7 in 96, 3.9 in 2004, and now I think it comes down to 2 point something percent. So there's a consistent downplaying of the importance of unions or of connection with unions within parties, but the hegemony still remains. Now, recent negative changes in a whole lot of laws, legislation that is at recent is I'm saying about a month ago, that have taken place. But even earlier, whenever there have been attempts, there's not even an attempt to talk to political party, to trade unions as a whole, but even to the one you're affiliated, the one that is affiliated to you, there's not much of an attempt. In the current context of uncontrolled rapacious capital, the ruthless exploitation of every possible resource, including labor, but there's also a lot of this thing everywhere in terms of land, water, air that is being that has been attempted to being exploited. The entire thrust is of opening of markets, expansion of markets, and emergence of a new regime of accumulation. So in the entire context that we had earlier, this is the present scenario. And what are the attempts of the trade union movement to look at both the fact that there is this hegemony and the fact that the nature of capital is becoming even more and more exploitative and ruthless. There have been a formation of autonomous or independent trade unions and company level federations. So there are several, there's Blue Star, Voltas, where a factory or an office begins unionizing, and they unionize all the factories or service centers or offices of that company, and that is a totally independent of political parties. They're very political, but not with political parties. So that's one attempt which has happened since the 70s, and with a lot of ups and downs, this has happened. At another level is SEWA, which is also an independent women's union. It's a very different story, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it.
Just say what SEWA is.
Oh, sorry. SEWA is Self-Employed Women's Association. It's a union of began in one state of Gujarat, but it's gone to it's developed and become strong in several other states as well. And it has a membership of over 1100,000.
What a million?
1.1 million, yes. More than one. Sorry.
We count in lakhs and crores in India. That's why there is confusion all the time.
Yeah. So
the counting system is different.
1.1 million. Yeah, it is 11 lakh, is it?
And all informal. Yes, yes.
And it's all informal women. They're home-based women. They're cooperatives, cleaners cooperatives or garments, and then service cooperatives, health cooperatives. So they're all of them together in several states now, including the South, which did not have SEWA for a long time. Then there's the formation of various platforms, also with central trade unions and across party lines. So there have been several issues on which things like privatization. There's been there've been major strikes on that issue. Then there's on the issue of natural resources. So this whole thing of land acquisition, on issues of right to food, right to work. There have been major campaigns with a lot of political parties and trade unions. Attempts to form a federation of independent unions in the form of the new trade union initiatives. There's also an attempt to say that, okay, there are all these independent unions, but you cannot, you have to have a national voice as well, which which connects to the international voice. There is an attempt to form a new trade union initiatives. So these are various forms that are attempted in this current context. Then there are broad fronts with organization of rural workers, informal sector workers that are issue-based. For example, right to food, right to work that I mentioned. Some have been very successful. Some have actually translated into legislation, which has done quite which has been a node of organizing, like the right to work. There have been several unions that have formed only when the workers go through the right to work schemes to work on construction sites, on agricultural sites. Some of these have been alliances with women's organizations, Dalit organizations, organizations working with issues related to human rights, rights of sexual minorities, and other disadvantaged sections. The entire issue of Dalit organizations has been extremely important over the last decade or two. And because again, Dalit rights also coalesce with, though they are not in formal trade unions, they are workers. They are agricultural workers most of the time, construction workers. They're workers who are completely disenfranchised and are just beginning to find their feet, and hence a very, very fertile ground for trade unions. So they exist. Looking at the discussions in the morning as well as whatever we have experienced, the existing parties seem a total no-no. One issue that has been raised and has been raised here as well is the time ripe to attempt to form a new radical workers' party? Given the nature of capitalist crisis and its almost persistent nature, the idea of a radical party radical workers' party coming into being at this stage seems remote, though I think much more debate is needed. Thank you.
May I stand?
You do.
Please.
Okay. First of all, introduce myself. My name is Changgeun from Korean Confederation of Trade Unions. I'm not sure if you have already heard about my organization, but anyway, my organization also affiliated to the ITUs, and okay, later I will. I hope I have a chance to explain or introduce my organization's activities. But anyway, my point right now is my organization's experience and policy on union-party relationship. How can this
split? Might be easier to use the arrow keys.
Okay. Okay. First of all, would like to yesterday as Rosa, the general secretary of PSI, already said, their river attack has resulted in the weakening of union power. So as you see, especially the unions in the global laws, and also the unions in the Euro, the post-war era, you have enjoyed the institutionalized power under the regime of Keynesian welfare state. But at the same time, and in the same era, my union, also most unions in the global south, they had a very harsh period of bloody repression by the government, by the capital, under the military dictatorship or the authoritarian regime. And from the early of 80s, we have faced neoliberal era. The unions in the global north has lost the two powers, the economic power of trade unions, economic power, and also started to lose the political power, and losing the political allies in the government. Because in the era of neoliberal globalization, the most states they directly intervene in the economic situation in order to enhance so-called national competitiveness. So it means that the unions in the global north have lost two types of union power: political power, at the same time economic power. But on the contrary, the my union and unions in the global south, especially in KCTU and the COSATU from South Africa and GUT from Brazil, three some unions from the global south. Very ironically, the neoliberalism, in the era of neoliberalism, they started to taste a certain amount, a certain institutionalized political power. Of course, they have lost also economic power, but they have a little, to some extent, a little institutionalized political power, because the good Brazil close link with PT, and COSATU good links with the ANC. Two parties took power, the state power. So through that links, the COSATU and GUT could exercise some political power in the compensation of loss of economic power. At the same time, my union also the legalization, they legalized in 1998, and before 1998, the so-called unregistered trade union, my union was. And as a result of political exchange, most of you know that the 1998 and in the late of 1997, the South Korean, the so-called the IMF crisis happened in South Korea. So I have to emphasize that the neoliberalism in the global south, including my country, has come together with democratization. So democratization provided some space, political space, for trade union to intervene and to exercise some political power. So my union also started to participate in the government committee, the tripartite bodies, for example, minimum wage councils, and also invited to various social dialogue bodies. So very different. So your unions lost political power, attacked by the neoliberalism. However, on the contrary, my union started to exercise, started to take some political power, very ironically. And so this should be you have to be careful to focus on this very different situation in order to understand more the trade union movement in the global south. And okay, and then my topic is the union party links. However, I have to emphasize that the how to place the union party links. The important is the context. So yesterday, my colleague from IEF emphasized that why organizing, what's the purpose of organizing, something like that. I mean, that my colleague from IVF custom to all of you. So union party link also, you have to ask why union party link important for the trade union movement? Why? For what? For the purpose. So my answer would be gaining the political party. No. Gaining the political power. So my view is that there are many ways to gain or regain political power. So union party links only one of them. This point is important. Personally, I have to emphasize because if we may think like this way, we have some space to develop some alternative ways to gain political power, even under the situation where there are no progressive parties. So this is, I have to say, this is very important. And then, under the different situations, different trade unions choose different strategies. For example, the union party links Northern European countries, very predominant ways to gain the political power. And collective action, including general strike, France, Italy, Spain, also my country, Brazil, South Africa. These unions in these countries they put the general strike, collective actions on the priority in terms of gaining some political influential power. And the social pact also important. It is one way of gaining political power. Sweden, Germany, Italy, the trade unions consider this very important. We have the political lobbying US and electoral activity US, UK. And so my emphasis is that like this graph, there are many ways. So we have to expand our thinking when we decide strategies to gain or regain political power of our unions. And thirdly, this is the KCTU's, my organization experience. I can divide three steps, three periods. The first one, the KDLP means Korean Democratic Labour Party. So pre-KDLP period, post-KDLP period, post-period. LP, the only way to get political power is the collective action. Very militant collective action. The general strike, some famous general strike conducted by my Confederation in 1996 to 1997. More than 2 months, we conducted general strike to defeat the bad labor law reform. So this is the only way. We could not find any other alternatives to exercise our power. And there also another very important factor is we failed. After the IMF crisis, the government suggests some social pact with the KCTU in 1998. Under the management of IMF structuring program, the IMF, they control the government. So at that time, political exchange happened between, as I said before, legalization of KCTU, my confederation. Before that year, my organization was illegal. And anyway, legalization exchanged by the legalization of layoff and also legalization labor dispatch. So some laws on labor flexibilization. So a political exchange happened at that time. So the leadership of KCTU signed provisionally with the government, with the employees organization in 1998. But in the KCTU Congress, I mean the social pact should be authorized in the KCTU Congress, but the social pact was rejected by the KCTU Congress in 1 month later. So after this experience, the KCTU members and KCTU leaders, recognize that the social pact is not good anyway. And then we launched some campaign, the so-called workers' political empowerment. I mean, including the forming the Progress Party. And then the second period is that the post-KDLP period, the Democratic Labour Party finally formed in 2001, and it was dismissed divided into two groups in 2008. So I have to emphasize that the comparing with the first period in terms of KCTU strategic choice, the first period, the only way would be militant collective action. But second period, we could have another option. That's the union party link and the exclusive relationship with Democratic Labour Party, which was formed, which was built by ourselves. So two strategic choices the options, and we implemented exclusive support campaign for DLP and recruiting party member, financial support, electoral activities, and the result of that 10 seat, 5 seats at the National Assembly. However, very unfortunately, in 2008. The KDLP divided into two groups, and the still Democratic Labour Party and the New Progressive Party, and the two parties it was launched in 2008. So this period they're very complicated. Anyway, the KCTU again initiated some grand campaign for the reunion campaign between two political parties in 2010, 2011. But the very complicated result, actually, this campaign was failed. 2012, the reunion campaign resulted unified Progress Party, founded in 2007. The result of this merger campaign. So if you consider this unified Progress Party, our campaign might be considered a successful one. However, at that time, still a new Progress Party still remained, and inside the unified Progress Party, there are the big internal scandals, corruption scandal happened. And then divided again into two parties, only in several months. So Unified Progress Party and Justice Party in October 2012. And the New Progress Party renamed by Labour Party in 2007. So KCTU finally dropped exclusive support policy for Democratic Labour Party in 2011. So this post-KDLP period, I must say that on political party would be collective action, still important, and open relationship, not exclusive relationship with one Progressive Party, but open relationships with plural Progressive Party. And there are many Progressive parties, and who should be responsible for the failure of this one? So this is very interesting. This is the KCTU Union member survey conducted in 2000, the last year, 2013. So, of course, a political party should be responsible the most, but you have to be careful to look at the lowest bar. The union members, they think that they have to share the responsibility for the failure of political party movement. You know, the more than half. So this is very important for discussing or for deciding the future policy direction of the political party of my organization. So why failed? There are many reasons, of course, but I would like to emphasize, point out 3 elements. The first one, a little bit fundamental reflection, but anyway, we estimated that we ignored the efforts to construct union members as a political subject, resulting in political substitutism. This is very the fundamental reflection of my organization. For example, you know, after forming the Progress Party, Democratic Labour Party, my union only focused on mobilizing vote, finance for the Democratic Labour Party. So, not good. And the second one is that of course, not only political party, the misconduct of political party, but also we have to think my union's capacity, and my union also has lost the capacity and leading role to coordinate internal conflicts inside the political party in accordance with the union power decline. And after the IMF crisis, the IMF restructuring process, in spite of some little gaining political power, we have also lost a huge amount of the union power, including economic power. So the decline of my union's power, you know, give some impact on my union's capacity to control or to coordinate the internal conflict or leading role the political party. And third one is that we failed to we narrowed the workers' political empowering into only forming and supporting Progress Party. Okay, my last part would be okay. So what will you do? For that purpose, I have to raise some questions for future policy directions. The first, okay, do we still need a Progress Party? Okay, this is also the same survey and his member survey. Strongly positive, 62%, positive, 20%, and then average negative, strong negative. So more than 80% KCTU members still want to have strong Progress Party, in spite of very the severe failure of Progress Party movement for the last 10 years. Understand? This also very, I think it's very important. The second question, okay, what principles should be prioritized in the party? You know, which party do you want? So the worker centrality. I'm not sure you fully understand the term of worker centrality. This is a kind of a Korean term. So the worker centrality not only mean the Progress Party should represent or should protect the general interest of workers, but also workers' centrality has a meaning of some means, to some extent, ideological base of New Progress Party, and some class-based party should be formed. Understand what I mean? So the worker centrality and the most more than and the half of, not more than, I mean nearly half of union members consider the most important principle for the future progressive party should be worker centrality, and then the unity capacity and others. So even the rather than the more important than the policy capacity. And the third question: what should be the KCTU policy on the Progress Party? There are plural progressive parties right now. So under considering this situation, what should we do? So around 40% of KCTU members suggest that the KCTU should take another initiative to build a new progress party. This means that you don't need to care about existing political parties, because existing political parties already lost their beliefs to the most KCTU members. But at the same time, around 27%, they still existing political parties should be base for the future Progress Party movement initiated by my trade union. So the C means that the KCTU should initiate new merger campaign among the existing progressive parties. So my conclusion is the future policy directions. My organization decided that we initiate a second round of workers' political empowering. And the workers' political empowering means the similar means that gaining the political power. So the first one is to place the political party on the broader context of workers' political empowering or gaining the political power. As I said in the first, the political party is a part of the ways to gain the political power, and put more emphasis on union revitalization or the mass movement rather than the political party, and emphasize political education and construct members as subjective political actors in order to overcome political substitutism. And lastly, emphasize the political activities on the various levels, including workplace and local. So right now, on various levels, we are reorganizing the political activities on subjective political actions conducted by the union members and rank and file members and the substitute, not only on the central level, but also the workplace level and the regional and local level. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now may I request Karan?
Morning, good afternoon. Another one of this. Okay, just to share with you, I was asked to sit here on this panel last night by the so there was no way to do any presentation or anything, and I was wondering what I'm going to do, and I thought I maybe just sharing with you some of my own experiences and trying to put this in a broader context, but there is no empirical evidence of what I'm going to say. So I think Dan's presentation very, very well in a very short time laid out to you the kind of context which was also important for the German labor movement and the trade union movement. When I was starting to become politically active in the 70s, and this was in a way like a follow-up of the 68 students' uprising in many European countries, and in particular in Germany, it was very much related to the fact that that generation that came to university was questioning their fathers and the professors, what have you been doing under fascism? And many of the old members of fascist party even were having power positions again in society. So they were starting this kind of conversation, and it had a huge impact on society and of a kind of revival of discussion in society of what kind of a society do we want to live in. So a lot of left-wing groups appeared, many of them with links from post-war periods, from the very, very beginning of history of the trade union movement. And so when the school I was attending, and I mean there were at least 3-4 different several left-wing groups. Left Social Democrats, communists from the Soviet Union, Maoist, a very small Trotskyist group, they disappeared. So this was the kind of environment. And they were all talking about the class struggle, and the workers would need to lead, and we would need to have socialism, communism, all the rest of it. And I thought, where are the workers? Where are the workers? I mean, you are talking, you know, from your cozy places at universities. So actually, there was there was a small group, we were looking for a tradition or a group that was actually engaging with workers. So we found a very, or in the end, it was just 2 or 3 of us. We found a little group that was in the tradition of Rosa Luxemburg, and they were actually, all of them were active, they were actively engaged in trade unions, and they were working in enterprises. But they were, so this was a little political group, and with the vision that as long as there is the workers don't really are revolutionary, we stick with the classical trade union institutions, and this is with the class institution, that's the trade unions. And we will not engage with the social democrats in a way, but in fact, we will show to the workers what's going wrong, what the wrong politics of the social democrats were. So from all these kinds of left-wing groups, I mean, the trade unions really were a safe haven. I mean, you couldn't find very many of those in the trade unions because many of them were outside of the unions. What there were some individuals, some of them like older people surviving the concentration camps of fascism, and who had been active in the labor movement and the trade union movement before World War II, and they were partly exceptional individualists, re-elected in the companies, and they were re-elected despite the fact that they were communists. Okay, so they were, because they were just outstanding individuals, and this, I must say, was true for all the left-wing activists in the 70s that I was describing to you, going into the companies and connecting to workers and with the trade unions. We were not voted into any position because we were left-wing and radical, but despite of the fact. So the relationship, and this was also mentioned here by Dan and also by you, there was obviously always a very, very close linkage between the trade union movement and the Social Democratic Party in Germany, but I would say there was never any control. I mean, you had the leadership were all members of the Social Democratic Party. This was seen as something natural. And some of them also were holding positions. Some of them were members of parliament. Some of them were in local parliaments and so forth. And you had different kind of traditions of unions, more authoritarian, more kind of liberal, and so forth. But in general, you could say that the paid staff of the trade unions, almost every one of them were members of the Social Democratic Party. I know from many people who were joining the union as paid staff. One of the questions in the interview asked were, "Are you a member of the Social Democratic Party? And if you are not, you better join if you want to work for us." So, but in a way, this was it was seen as a kind of natural thing, as Dan pointed it out. It was the vision of having a division of labor in the movement. The party was responsible for the political things. The trade unions were responsible for defending the workers' interests. And I may want to add a third pillar, that was the long tradition of cooperatives set up by the labor movement in Germany, and which we destroyed ourselves. I mean, the leaders of the trade union movement that were putting people there, they were either incapable of doing the job, or they were corrupt, or they were both. So, I mean, this collapsed in the most prominently the whole housing cooperatives in the 80s. In some trade unions, there were the only kind of active organized groups left from the Social Democrats visible there were the communists, the pro-Soviet communists. They were either really expelled by the unions. They would say, you are not signing up to the democratic principles of our organization. So there were long fights. Or they were, I mean, so loyal to the trade union movement, they were even worse than some social democrats. So and this was very much depending on the context and how this developed and in what region this was and so forth. But you had that. I think I would also like to mention, if we are talking about all these models and the welfare state and everything, for Germany, I think we have to bear in mind the division between East and West Germany. I mean, the GDR was even, I would say, it was clear for even the conservative people in the country, you have to give the workers something, otherwise they might find another system attractive. Although, I mean, if you go there, it was not really attractive. But there was a constant threat politically by the Soviet Union or by the Soviet bloc, and we were very close to it, that maybe, I mean, workers do have the idea that this might be a better system, and so there was this kind of ideology also that you have, we are better because we have something to offer for the workers, and that's the welfare state. So, and surely this had an impact after the collapse of the Berlin Wall. This was not necessary anymore. So I think that was one of the big reasons that I mean, the Social Democrats, they introduced these neoliberal policies. I mean, the Conservative Party had not dared to do that. I mean, under Helmut Kohl, I don't think he would have had such a rigid deregulation policies as the Social Democrats when they came into power. From the very start of the question, this was stay together for the sake of the children or get a divorce. I mean, if I look at that picture, I must say the Social Democrats, and now what I want to add is this has really changed. I mean, the linkages between the Social Democratic Party and the trade unions have become less and less. And the obvious thing is the unions, the services unions, Frank Brzezinski, he's a member of the Green Party. He has never been active there, he doesn't play really a role, but I think when he was becoming, I think he already was a member of the Green Party, but it was also to show that we are independent from you. That was the main message. It was not the Green Party. It was the message was we are independent from the Social Democratic Party. And recently, my own union, the Food Workers Union, they elected a new chairperson, a woman, the first time a woman, and she's not a member of any party. So this is new, but nevertheless, I would say there are strong linkages, but it is not as strong as it used to be. And for example, what the unions are doing when elections are coming up, they say these are the union demands. So we are looking at all party programs that are represented in parliament, and we check. I mean, what do they say to the minimum wage? What do they say in terms of social protection and so forth? And then our members can choose what is the right party to vote for. So they would, and they never did, even when the linkages were closer, they never really did say you have to vote for social democrats, because they were expecting the members to do it. So getting back to the picture, stay together for the sake of the children or get a divorce. Actually, I think the Social Democratic Party and the trade union is like an very old couple. They just missed the divorce. they are there and they are kind of getting along, but without a lot of sympathy or. And I think that is the thing that worries me. I mean, at least when I was an activist in the union, I mean, at least there was the ideology of social partnership. And the underlying ideology is still there, but it is nothing which is, you don't have any political statements really in that. So that I would say even the lack of linkage created a kind of vacuum. I mean, the whole ideology is kind of, it doesn't matter anymore in the political discussion. So it is, of course, it's up to us to give this back, but at the moment I don't see there is nothing really of ideology left. So so there is a positive side and a negative side to this. And I think I want to stop.
Thank
there.
Whatever time we spend in discussion, here takes away from the discussion.
Okay.
So have the coffee ready.
So, what Dave is suggesting, we can have some quick questions, but if we spend more time here, then we'll miss on the group discussions. So, what do you want to do? And the coffee is also ready. Maybe some urgent, somebody wants to say something very urgently.
Yes. Yeah, Bert Scoundberg from the GMB. I should say, seeing this has been recorded, and I'm a GMB official, these are my personal views because I'd like to keep on my job.
Okay.
But the question was, should there be a divorce or should we stay together for the sake of the kids? But what we haven't looked at is the whole institution of marriage. Because you could argue, that by encouraging our members to get involved in electoral politics, they're actually perpetuating a system that will never deliver for us.
That's true.
Because you could say that parliaments aren't there to give power to the people. Parliaments are there to separate power from the people.
Yeah.
Which is why, going back to the colonial question, the UK exported the Westminster model across the world and certainly to its old colonies, thereby creating a political class that separated the power from the people. And you don't have to be a Marxist, I don't think, to see that. The logic in that. So maybe trade unions should actually think about, instead of expanding all their energies, on selling a lie actually to their members by saying that voting is going to change anything. Because there's a famous politician in this country called Ken Livingstone who actually wrote a book entitled "If Voting Changed Anything, They Would Abolish It." Because can you have democracy and capitalism at the same space? I would argue that you can't, because capitalism is the antithesis of democracy. Because capital joint stock companies, capitalist companies are responsible only to the shareholders. There is no democracy in capitalism. But you will never get rid of capitalism by voting it out in Parliament, you could argue. So maybe we should look at the whole question of, do we want to involve ourselves as trade unionists in perpetuating an electoral fraud in the false belief that it's going to change anything? Discuss.
Thank you. Okay, there were two hands here, then I'll come back to you. Yes, Diane, you wanted to say something?
I want to ask
Yes.
with Korea. it's interesting how to manage the conflicts in internal of trade unions because of the conflict of the split of political party. In my experience in Indonesia, also like that, it's political party split and then the trade unions split. How you manage the conflicts first, and meanwhile, we also need a political party to take the power. Nowadays, how to take a power without any political party and to have a great change of fundamental changes.
Revolution.
Yeah, that's a revolution. But nowadays, how? How we make it real? Because that's
Okay. All right. Just two more questions and then that's it. Yes, first for you.
I'm speaking as a relative outsider, but I think the whole question of, is there, should we stay together with social democratic parties, or should there, for the sake of the children, should there be divorce? It's missing the whole point. We're almost, as trade unionists, we're almost like, a lover that's whose partner has left them, but yet still cling to the idea that there's a relationship. It's almost like a complete fantasy. I mean, we're living in this fantasy world. Yeah, there has already been an annulment. Social democratic parties have already divorced the unions, and yet we keep, unions keep plowing money into these parties in the hope that someone said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. Yeah, this method of trying to push social democratic parties to the left by doing exactly the same thing as what we've always done. We're just living in this fantasy world, and as I've said, social democratic parties have already left the union movement. They've already gone, and I think just talking about perpetuating the existing system, that's all that we're doing by allowing this sort of fantasy to continue. We're just these mainstream parties, they can keep doing what they want because they know that they'll still be getting the money. And until there is an attempt to form an alternative, it doesn't matter if it doesn't win seats at the beginning. Until there is that electoral competition, these mainstream parties will be living in, they'll be completely happy to carry on as it is because there's no fear there. So I just think, I almost think the debate is kind of irrelevant because, as I said, I think. The relationship is over. It's time for the unions to kind of wake up and smell the coffee.
Yes. Okay. I think we have to stop now. We have to move to the group discussions. Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. We are carving time. Such a program.